I used to work the night shift at a small hospital in rural Ohio. It wasn't a big place, the kind of hospital that feels almost abandoned after 2 a.m., when even the hallways seem to hold their breath. I worked as a cleaning technician, nothing glamorous. My job was simple: disinfect empty rooms, collect medical waste, and try not to think too much about the sounds the building made at night. During my 3rd week, my supervisor gave me a different task. Room 412. Just clean it up, she said, barely looking at me. I asked if the patient had already been discharged. She hesitated for a second. It's empty. I should have trusted that second of silence. When I arrived at room 412, the first thing I noticed was the smell. It wasn't the normal hospital smell. Not alcohol. Not disinfectant. It was sweet. Too sweet. Like old flowers. The lights were off. I turned them on. The bed was perfectly made. Good news, I thought. Until I heard the heart monitor. Beep. Beep. I froze. The monitor was on, and it was registering a heartbeat. Slow. Steady. I looked around the room. There was no one in the bed. No patient. No body. And still. Beep. Beep. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer to the monitor, thinking it had to be some kind of electrical malfunction. That's when I noticed something else. The bathroom door was slightly open, and the light inside was on. I didn't remember seeing that before. "Hello?" I called. Silence. I slowly pushed the bathroom door open. Empty. But the mirror was fogged up, like someone had just taken a hot shower. My heart started pounding. I was about to leave the room when I heard something behind me. The sound of sheets moving. I turned around instantly. The bed was no longer perfectly made. The sheet had a small depression in the middle, like someone had just sat down. And then the monitor went crazy. Beep. 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 The heartbeat was accelerating. Faster. And faster. But there was still no patient. No body. No one. I ran out of that room and went straight to the nurse's station. The night nurse went pale the moment I mentioned room 412. She only said one thing: "You weren't assigned to that room." I told her the supervisor had sent me. She slowly shook her head. "That wing has been closed for 6 months. The next morning, I looked for that supervisor on the employee board. No one with that name worked there. I quit that same day. I still work night shifts. But there's one thing I will never do again. I never enter a room where the heart monitor is already on, because sometimes it's monitoring someone you can't see." When I was a kid, I grew up in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood in Ohio. Nothing special. Just a quiet street, a decent-sized house, and a normal family. When I turned 8, my parents adopted a small, golden-colored dog named Rusty. He quickly became my shadow. Wherever I went, he followed. As I got older, I started staying home alone more often, but with Rusty around, it never really felt like I was alone. I never had a reason to feel scared. That didn't last forever. When I was 16, my parents decided to move. We left that neighborhood and relocated about 30 minutes away into a much smaller house, deep in a wooded area in rural Pennsylvania. And that same summer, Rusty died. He was old, so we knew it was coming. Still, it hit hard. I guess I was lucky it happened during summer break. I didn't have to go to school. I could just stay home and deal with it. After a few days, things slowly went back to normal. My parents returned to work, and I was left alone at the house again. But this time, it felt completely different. For the first time in my life, I actually felt alone. No Rusty, no familiar house, just silence. And a place I barely knew. Every little noise made me tense. Every creak felt wrong. The house itself didn't help either. It was a single-story layout. When you walked in through the front door, you stepped straight into the living room and kitchen area, From there, a long, narrow hallway stretched back, with 2 bedrooms on the right, and my parents' bedroom at the very end. That hallway bothered me. I don't know why, but I hated leaving doors open. So, every morning, I'd walk down that hallway and shut every single door. It just made me feel safer. One morning, about a week after Rusty passed, I did the same routine. I walked down the hallway, closing each door one by one, until I reached my parents' room at the end. I pulled the door shut and turned to walk away, but something felt off. I didn't hear the latch click, so I turned back, grabbed the handle again, and pushed it harder this time. Click. That was better. I went back to my room, shut the door, put on my headphones, and got lost watching videos for a couple hours. By the time I took them off, it was around 9 in the morning, and I was starving. I set my headphones down, opened my bedroom door, and stepped into the hallway. That's when something caught my eye. At first, just in my peripheral vision. I turned my head, slowly, looking down the hallway, and I froze. The door, at the very end, was open, wide open. I just stood there, completely still, listening, trying to hear anything coming from my parents' room. Nothing. Not a single sound. But I knew I had closed that door. There was no doubt in my mind, which meant someone had opened it. And if someone had opened it, then someone was inside the house. I hadn't heard anything before, so I had no idea where they were. They could have been anywhere. I moved slowly into the living room, scanning every corner, expecting someone to step out at any second. When I reached the kitchen, I grabbed the biggest knife I could find from the counter. It didn't make me feel safe, but it made me feel less helpless. I checked the living room, then the dining area. Nothing. Finally, I stood at the entrance of the hallway. Again, my heart was pounding. I started with the guest bedroom. I tried to open the door quietly, but it creaked loudly. I froze, waited, nothing. The room was empty. I closed it. Only one room left, my parents' bedroom, the one with the open door. I stood there for a long moment, staring inside. I could only see part of the bed from where I was standing. Everything looked normal. Hello? I called out. My voice didn't sound convincing at all. No response. I stepped inside slowly, gripping the knife tighter. I checked around the room, closet, corners, under the bed. Nothing. For a second, I actually thought I was imagining things, until I walked around to the other side of the bed and noticed something. On the floor, dirt, small marks, like footprints. Right then, I heard a dull thud behind me. I spun around instantly. The bathroom door closed, but now I could hear movement inside, fast movement, and under the door, I could see a shadow. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. A few seconds passed, then another sound, and then footsteps, moving away, quick, fading, gone. I rushed to the bathroom door and threw it open. Empty, but the window was wide open. I ran over and slammed it shut, locking it immediately. Then I bolted back to my room to grab my phone. I didn't call the police. I don't know why. I was young, scared, and not thinking straight. Instead, I called my parents. They called the police for me and rushed home. When officers searched the house, they found dirt footprints throughout nearly every room, except mine. They confirmed it was just one person. But here's the part that still bothers me the most. Nothing was taken, not a single thing. Whoever was inside my house wasn't there to steal. We moved out a few months later. There were other issues with the house, but that was the main one for me. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. I'm in my 20s now, and I still think about it sometimes. I keep wondering, what would have happened if I hadn't been wearing headphones? If I had actually heard them come in, I probably would have seen them. And honestly, that thought is worse than anything else, because whoever it was, they were already inside, watching, and I had no idea how long they'd been there.